Today on Locked On Rockies, a couple of pieces from Thomas Harding has me thinking about some of the stuff that he said, including creative trades to fix the roster and Ryan Feltner eyeing a big rebound in 2026.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 30th day of October in the year 2025. I'm your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. If your team is the Colorado Rockies, you're in the right spot, because that's what we do around here each and every day, free and streaming on your favorite streaming services and on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show. You can fire off your Rockies hot takes. You can let me know what's on your mind when it comes to the Colorado Rockies here on the Locked On Rockies podcast. Fire them off. We want to know what's going on. What are you thinking about here as the offseason continues for the Colorado Rockies? And baseball still in action here as of recording. Blue Jays 2-0 over the Dodgers. So good series, real good series. World Series has been good. The playoffs in general have been good, I think, and been entertaining baseball all around. There were a couple of pieces from Thomas Harding, and one I want to mainly focus on here, titled, "Here Are the Rockies' Most Pressing Questions This Offseason," and talks about how the Rockies might improve the starting pitching, what they're going to be looking for on the roster. So we're going to take a look at that, and he also got some updates from Ryan Feltner as well. So we'll talk about that, and we'll get a couple of your comments here from the week so far on the Locked On Rockies podcast. Before we go any further, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. If you're first time tuning in, my name is Paul Holden. I'm your Rockies fan extraordinaire. Was a Rockies fan my whole life. Been bringing this Rockies pod to you now here since 2020, and lifelong Rockies fan, rocking along with you guys here, talking Rocks and going through it with all of you. So over on MLB.com, well, specifically, Rockies.com as well, but Thomas Harding, writing about the Rockies and what they need to do, mentions this here. If you're curious about the front office search, Dick Monfort and Walker Monfort, the in-person interview stage, Guardians executive vice president and assistant general manager Matt Foreman visited Coors Field late last week, and Diamondbacks senior vice president / assistant general manager Emil Sade arrived at the start of this week. It's not clear when a hire will be made. So mentions, of course, that the Rockies that they'll need to just make the decision about Schaefer. We talked a little bit about this piece and mentioned a little bit here on this in yesterday's show, but I was curious about one. I wanted to kind of highlight one of the things and just part of the language that I thought was interesting here, because I'm curious, how much is this actually an option? What does, in this situation, the word creative mean? So let's read a little bit here. How do the Rockies improve their starting pitching? It's hard to be worse than the Rockies rotation, which finished with the highest starter ERA, 6.65, since the stat became official in 1913. Veteran lefty Kyle Freeland ended the season pitching effectively, and rookie righty Tanner Gordon led the rotation in wins with 6. Otherwise, the rotation was inexperienced and ineffective, although former top draft pick Chase Dollander, Bradley Blaylock, and McCade Brown gained experience. The expected return of righty Ryan Feltner should be a boost. Lefty Sean Sullivan, Rockies number 12, and righty Gabriel Hughes, number 14. Those are prospect rankings, by the way, are the next closest prospects, and lefty Griffin Herring, number 9, could make quick progress after excelling last season in the Rockies and Yankees systems. But German Marquez is headed for free agency, and the Rockies announced at the end of the season that Antonio Senzatella will be a reliever in 2026. All this to say, the Rockies sorely need experience for the rotation. The new baseball operations leader will arrive with the knowledge that attracting free agent pitchers in their prime is difficult no matter who's doing the negotiating. Expect the Rockies to try to creatively seek trades. And so that's the question. What is the creativity? And I'm not saying this in a doubtful thing, because while I am doubtful, because it's, again, is that the Rockies maybe saying, hey, what we have in the system from the guys that Bill Schmidt brought in, the options there. We're willing to move more younger guys and more prospects, to get some veteran talent. Because on the major league roster, on your options, what is that trade looking? I mean, when you're talking about intriguing or an interesting trade chip, like is creative, like who knows, like a Brenton Doyle, for example. Is a Brenton Doyle, is that what a creative trade is? I mean, another thing, I think a rebounding Mickey Moniak is a prime trade candidate as well. We've talked about that. Is he the factor there? Because all in all, on the major league roster, you don't have much to work with. And I guess the other question, could this open the door for a Kyle Freeland trade? Or even moving him into the bullpen, an Antonio Senzatella trade. The difficult thing about the Freeland and Antonio Senzatella trade is the amount of money that those guys are owed on their contracts still. But the word creative there. And obviously, Harding working with only limited information as well. It's not like he's talked to he knows who's making the decisions and calling the shots and exactly what the Rockies are going to be able to do at this position. But as much as yet that kind of like raises the question of who creative trades, the Rockies, really? Now that's something that can be interesting there as well. Does that mean that trading and moving pieces and shuffling pieces around and trying to mix and match, which has its pros and cons, is that going to be something that the Rockies are more willing to do? Are the Rockies going to become a team that becomes more aggressive at deadlines? Are the Rockies going to become a team that is active in shuffling the roster in the offseason, especially as they navigate budget and things like that? Because again, pros and cons, like we talked about. Teams like the Marlins trading all their, not really committing. We know the Rockies commit to players and sign them to deals. This could be a possible shift in the Rockies changing from that. So I know it's only one word, and I know I'm doing a lot of off-season speculating in a time where there's not a ton of information. But that could be the word creative does enough, at least, where it's like, okay, like I like the theory of it, but what does that really look like for the Rockies? Could it be even a potentially? I really don't think so. Like a Tovar deal. I think the Rockies are sitting and saying Hunter Goodman and Ezequiel Tovar are young enough that they can factor into the next phase. The thing with Hunter Goodman is the catching is one thing, but he's also, you have that whole DH possibility for him as well. Hunter Goodman is 26, and Ezequiel Tovar is much younger. Isn't he much younger than that? Let me get that. Tovar's 24, 2 years younger. These two guys certainly still, if you're talking about holding on for the long term and having these guys go through everything, and ideally, like we said with Goodman, hopefully it's backed up, and same with these guys. There is a chance that these guys could still be in their, if you go by age numbers, their athletic primes when the Rockies are hypothetically in a contention window, which if you're accounting for this taking 5 years, which it very likely could. So I guess I'm just kind of curious what the creative trade looks like for the Rockies, and if I think the creative trade probably comes in the form of, hey, here's some guys that have had some time, here's some guys that have had some moments to do something, had an audition up there, didn't do much, aren't going to probably factor into the future for us, but can maybe go help a team, maybe unlock a next level for another team or something like that. Especially again, when, we were just talking about Goodman and Tovar being a little bit younger, and Brenton Doyle here. Brenton Doyle is going to be 28 next year. So, if you're talking about the Rockies being multiple years away from contention, he's going to be on the other side of 30. When it comes to a possible contention window. So there might be a conversation there, and it might be a tough pill to swallow, but I think if it's going to be a team that if they turn into a team that's going to make more trades and shuffle things up and evaluate and kind of look at the team and say, all right, it's not going in the right directions, we need to sell or we need to do this, the Rockies fan would have to get used to a Brenton Doyle being a trade candidate here, because in reality he would be one of the best trade pieces at the major league level that the Rockies have. What is Michael Toglia going to really fetch for that, especially when you're talking about needing to trade on the level of bringing in quality starting pitching? I mean, you're not going to get teams to just hand you a quality starter for a bag of peanuts. So I think it's going to require the Rockies maybe moving on from some guys that have, that we've seen have some good performances over, despite the record being a problem and the Rockies struggling over the last couple of years. And I think it's going to also be the Rockies evaluating and looking at the prospects that are in the system and drafted by the former front office, and making decisions about that. Let's talk about a couple of names, and let's talk about some position stuff that Thomas Harding mentions as well in this piece, coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. And the Nuggets always have a bunch of fun players to see what's going on with, when you got Jokic, when you got Murray, when you got Gordo, and you got all the rest of that, Christian Braun. I mean, there's a whole bunch of Nuggets players that you can see the lines for on FanDuel. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's right. New customers are going to get $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Locked On Rockies here, back with you on this Thursday, Halloween Eve episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you so much again for making us your first listen of the day. Thank you for checking us out on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. We got lots of good feedback here, and like Marco saying, until the Rocks get back to winning ways, probably at least partially driven by solving cores, aces won't sign here, so they'll have to be homegrown. My hope is that the new VP, or whatever title they go with, establishes a consistent theme that every minor league team of the Rocks follows, so that players at every level are focused on the same things and not hearing different messages when they move up. That said, this is difficult but not impossible, with having teams all over the country playing at different altitudes and environments. On a somewhat related matter, beside the fact that the Rockies have a complex at Salt River Fields, why is their pitching lab not at 52 a mile high, 5280 feet? There's a 3,000-foot difference in altitude between Denver and Scottsdale, and a baseball will spin differently there. Seems that our pitching problems need to be solved in Colorado. I mean, it's an interesting question. I think I don't altitude and all that stuff, to be totally honest, is just really above my pay grade when it comes to the understanding. And we know it plays the impact. We know on the ball carrying, we know on the spin, we know all that. So yeah, in terms of why is it there, probably, why is it in Arizona? They have there's all the training, everything Rockies training related is all there in Arizona as well, and they have that complex and probably the space to put something like that. It would be kind of interesting to see if the Rockies would explore something potentially in like Colorado Springs. Obviously, the Rockies having a history of minor league baseball and baseball in Colorado Springs as well. But Olympic athletes go and train there or something like that. But again, I'm not going to sit here and act like I have any sort of a real explanation as to why it's in Arizona versus in Colorado. I would imagine it's space. I would imagine it's because the complex and everything's there. But the point of you got to grow and develop the ace is going to be a huge thing. And yes, they do need to have a consistent theme, but like you mentioned, it's going to vary, and especially it's going to vary. There needs to be an identity, a pitching philosophy and identity, something that's there. But the Rockies need to be able to let the pitchers, you use their strengths. What makes them great? The one thing that I think is a little frustrating about, and one thing why I think the Rockies rotation has been as big of a problem as it has been, is because the Rockies, it's predictable. Pitch to contact guys that aren't necessarily great at striking you out, that are going to be, are going to give you pitches to hit. That is what the Rockies pitching staff has kind of been all about. It would be, I liked when you had John Gray and Herman Marquez to an extent as well, when he pre-injury, when you had some strikeout guys mixed with your Antonio Senzatellas and Kyle Freelands, about, of being able to have pitch to contact and, the sneaky ability to get to strike batters out with Freeland and Senza. And then you get guys like Gray and Marquez that can strike guys out. Kind of like that, it varies up the rotation a bit, and it calls for a different approach throughout a series, for example, for other teams to have to prepare for. All right, I want to go back to the Thomas Harding piece here. Here are the Rockies' most pressing questions this offseason from yesterday. We were talking about the creative trades. What does that look like here for the Rockies here? So just want the Rockies a little. Let's just read a little bit more from this piece and kind of go back to the trades things, because this will connect with possible potential trade pieces for the Rockies and what they might want to do. By season ends, rookies manned the right side of the infield. Ryan Ritter took over at second base after Thairo Estrada was limited to 39 games by right wrist and right hamstring injuries. The Rockies thought Michael Toley was the answer after his 25 home runs in 2024, but he batted 190 with 132 strikeouts in 88 major league games. Warming Bernabel and Blaine Krim came up from AAA Albuquerque to replace Tolia. First and second are the spots to add a veteran via trade or free agency, even if the contract isn't a lengthy one. The team fully expects Charlie Condon, Colorado's top 2024 draft pick and an Arizona Fall League sensation, to be ready eventually. That said, let's look at some roster situations. It's difficult to project what the Rockies will do since the decision makers have yet to be hired. So Harding goes on to then say Marquez has reached the end of his contract and is not expected to receive a qualifying offer. There are mutual options for Estrada and utility man Kyle Farmer. But like we read yesterday, good chance the Rockies are probably going to do that. Weren't we talking 10 million? This is $1 million. There's a big difference in what Sport Track was saying yesterday there, just to notice that. But again, I don't think I think you open up the door for free agency. Estrada clearly showed you that he hasn't been able to put the health stuff behind him. You have some young guys that you can fill the gap with behind him, just to give him a little bit more time. A little bit more of an audition. But I'm with Thomas here. Both first base and second base, you should be open-minded to going out and making a deal for and seeing what you can do to address that. Even if, again, I don't think the Rockies need to get into any big contracts, and they're not going to have a chance, because landing some of the big fish free agents and signing a big deal, a Pete Alonso, a Bo Bichette, those level of deals, you got to be closer to competing. To even consider signing those levels of deals. Look at the Chris Bryant deal and the situation the Rockies are in now. So you're going to need to be able to, the best way to get the best talent probably on the best deal or the best length of deal is going to come through trades. And the Rockies are going to have to look at trading some of these guys. And again, what is the value of these guys? What is the combo of guys that the Rockies are going to have to give up in order to make teams be interested in making a move here? When we're talking about Condon coming up, are you willing to try to see what is there someone out there that says, you know what, we can fix Michael Toglia, we want to give it a shot, we'll take a deal if you pair him with Brenton Doyle for someone. And again, I'm not even getting into specific targets for the Rockies. I'm talking about what packages of players do the Rockies even offer at this stage, and how much value do they really bring when you're talking about a Bernabel and a Krim, adding them into a deal? Are they going to just probably go Kyle Karros at third base? Would they move Amador? Would they move Freeman? And what does that look like on the trade market as well? Let's see here. The immediate roster decisions. Eligible players become free agents the day after the World Series. Once the World Series ends, decisions must be made about adding players on the 60-day injured list back to the 40-man roster. The Rockies, whose 40-man roster is full, have 4 players on 60-day IL. Estrada, who could end up a free agent. Pitchers Jeff Criswell, expected back from right elbow surgery early next season. Dugan Darnell, who underwent left hip surgery late in the season. And Chris Bryant, rehabbing chronic back problems. With Marquez set for free agency and Estrada and Farmer potentially testing the waters, there isn't an immediate roster crunch. With the exception of, and this is for arbitration, with the exception of lefty reliever Lucas Gilbreth, who has battled injury, those eligible for arbitration are core players. Feltner, outfield regulars Brenton Doyle, Mickey Moniak, and Tyler Freeman, and righty high-leverage reliever Jimmy Herget. Teams must decide whether to tender contract offers to arbitration-eligible players by November 21st. And I'd have to imagine that all of them are going to get, a contract. I think the Rockies are going to stick with Mickey Moniak. Tyler Freeman didn't do much, but, at least has the versatility and positions that he can play. But here's the interesting part about the roster, the 40-man, and clearing out some of the spots for that 40-man, because there's some interesting names here that could be eligible for the Rule 5 draft. Talking about, again, maybe some names here that potentially could be fitting into the creative trade. Players who are eligible for the roster are Hughes, outfielder Sterling Thompson, number 15, righty Yoner Herrera, number 17, coming off missing 2025 after Tommy John surgery, lefty reliever and 2025 Futures Games participant Wilton Herrera, number 19, righty starter Jordan Vargas, coming off Tommy John surgery, outfielder and 2021 first-round pick Benny Montgomery. Now, I mean, you're talking right there. We have really nothing about Montgomery. We haven't even seen him at the majors here. This is a high-level draft pick here. Is he going to be a guy that is going to be a factor in some trades? Or, could he even potentially not even see the field as a member of the Rockies if they move on from him here? What does it look like for potentially a Zach Veen after not getting the as much another call-up throughout the rest of that regular season there last year? There are some names that we've talked about here as prospects that could factor into that creative trade area, but I think it really will depend on what the evaluation from the. I mean, obviously, this is not a game breaking point here, but I should say, I will be really interested to see what the evaluation of the talent is by the new front office. Because if they do make a bunch of trades, or even a few trades, doesn't have to be a bunch of trades, a handful of trades, and they move on from some of these guys that we know and some of these guys that we've talked about as interesting prospects and being told, wait to see, we're going to, these guys are coming, blah, blah, blah. It'd be interesting to see what that looks like and how the Rockies, either really buy in and be like, yo, we love what we see, what Benny's doing right here. We're really excited. We think he's going to have a spring that's going to compete and he can do some crazy stuff. Or, sitting there and say, it's a guy that we haven't been able to reach where we're trying to get. And this is a guy that we know if we put him in a deal can get us that starting first baseman, that arm in the rotation that's going to be able to hold it down enough for us. There's a lot of, there is so much work and so many questions about the Colorado Rockies this offseason. It's going to be really interesting to see how they start answering them. All right, let's take a quick break, and then let's get a quick check-in. We've been reading from Harding all day. Again, if you want more from this piece on MLB.com, here are the Rockies' most pressing cues this offseason from Thomas Harding. Let's get a quick update about Ryan Feltner and a couple more of your comments coming up next. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season, whether you're following the NFL, NBA, NHL, or both. or triple, there's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it yet, PrizePicks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 players' stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere PrizePicks operates, including California, Texas, and Georgia. You can use PrizePick during both football Sundays and NBA tip-offs to get in on all the action, and you can pick your favorite players, even across sports, and get in on all the fun. The new stack features is a game changer. You can now pick more on Steph's points, threes, and assists in the same lineup or any of the hot hands. Then you could go all in on one player. Plus, if one of your players leaves early with an injury, the injury reboot saves your lineup from a loss. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Locked on Rockies here, coming to a close on this Thursday, on the 30th day of October. Pretty crazy to say, honestly. But this also from Thomas Harding here. Just wanted to give a brief update here on where the Rockies are at with Ryan Feltner. And this is going to be a guy that's going to be someone that's really interesting to watch and really going to be one of the storylines to follow here, because we have seen some promise. We've seen some intrigue from Ryan Feltner since he has been in the league, and it's a guy that we didn't get to see nearly anything of in 2025. When you're talking about a guy that made it to the end of April before being not seen him for the rest of the season. And it's not the most. You look at some of the numbers and they're a bit tough there. 9-26 for 5.19 ERA and in 67 starts. But I look at 291 strikeouts and I get pretty intrigued. I get pretty hopeful. I think this is a guy that get healthy and see what he can do type of situation. That's really more what I'm at. I'm not ready to throw in the full towel here, especially when you're talking about where the Rockies are at as a rotation. But I just wanted to read a little bit here from this piece to just what Harding's got on the update from him. There came a point a couple of weeks before the end of the season where it was clear that I wasn't going to have time to build back up and make it back, said Feltner. I told myself, who's 29 as well, I told myself I could go through everything that went wrong, everything that I felt wasn't handled correctly on anybody. I told myself I could go through everything that went wrong, everything that I felt wasn't handled correctly on anybody's end. I could go through that all day, but I just want to move on. It's something that I don't want to give any energy to. Feltner is all energy at this point. The stories function on his Instagram account regularly flashes videos of intense training sessions at Cressy Sports Performance in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida. They are welcome dispatches after a season during which Feltner was out of sight in Denver after being placed on the injured list with back spasms on May 2nd and out of mind after the shoulder injury that sidelined him at AAA Albuquerque. Maybe Feltner's offseason work can symbolize what's happening with the Rockies. The MLB worst 43 and a 119 record in 2025 that marked a club record 7 straight losing seasons exposed the Rockies as an organization whose foundation has crumbled and is in need of rethinking and redevelopment. So here's that momentum too. At the end of 2024, Feltner had the type of momentum that his team didn't. His final 15 starts yielded a 2.75 ERA and 227 batting average against, and those numbers in September were 178 and 171 respectively. He finished with a career high 162 in the third innings. A power pitcher, Feltner said he lost some velocity late that season, but the fastball was playing so well because he had the other 5 pitches working. But Feltner's expected breakout turned into a breakdown with the attempt to return from the back injury leading to the shoulder issue. He's a really good pitcher, interim manager Warren Schaefer said in September. He's got some of the best stuff we've got. It was just a tough year physically. I still hit the weight room hard, but I cut my offseason short because I wanted to take the first month of the offseason to recover and make sure that I was ready to go next year, Feltner said. But I've learned a lot. Building capacity in the weight room is important for me so that I have a higher workload capacity going into next season. I'm already at 200 at this point, and I'm trying to gain about a pound a week to be 205 while staying on top of movement quality. I still feel super athletic. We're doing a whole lot of tests to make sure that as I'm adding weight, I'm not losing any athleticism. So I like the grind. I think I like the energy here. And I think that this is a guy, again, maybe a little frustrated with how the end of the season shook out there. he will be one of the top Rockies to watch next year in terms of intrigue for that. Let's see. We're just about out of time, but I'll do one more here from Gizmo Beach. Presumably hiring a new GM happens first, then who'd hire coaches. Rockies had several decent arms in the bullpen, even Bird until he fell from the sky, but that rotation was atrocious. Freeland was as good as it got. Their top 4 starters with at least 20 starts had an ERA well over 6 and just 14 wins between them. Yeah, it was tough out there. It was the Rockies pitching staff, like we said earlier, they're going to have to it cannot remain the same. They're going to have to do something to figure something out. We'll see what they do, especially as they bring on the new leadership, and we'll see how much leadership they're allowed to enact as well throughout the organization. That's going to do it for us here on Locked On Rockies today. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. For your second listen of the day, go check out Locked On MLB and Locked On MLB Game Night. And if you need more Colorado sports coverage, Locked On Broncos, Avalanche, Nuggets, and Buffs, free and streaming on your favorite streaming services and on YouTube. Until next time, I'm Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.